Bonjour mes amis, hi guys. After agonizing for weeks over which high-end annual calendar to purchase, leaning towards the Patek 5146 by default, let's say, because you can never go wrong with Patek, I suppose, one watch just stood out by its beauty and fit on the wrist. Side by side with the Patek, it just felt right for me. So here it is, the stunning 2017 release A.Lange und Söhne 1815 annual calendar. 1815 is one of their line of watches. The year refers to the brand founder's birth year. Annual calendar means you only need to advance the date via a pusher on the side once a year on March the 1st. The rest, once set, needs no adjustment ever. Well, the moon phase will need to be adjusted in about 122.5 years, mind you. Your great-great-grandchild will undoubtedly despise you for it and hawk this 40 grand watch. As you can tell, it doesn't have the trademark asymmetry or big date from the Lange 1 or Datograph or Saxonia line. The 1815 is Lange's more pocket watch inspired theme inside and out. Absolute classic elegance, but not the old-fashioned way. This is more the bread and butter of a lot of Patek creations, except the stunning 5235G, which was a serious contender in my search for the right calendar watch. The fit is similar, but the presentation very different. Speaking of calendar, I still have my rudimentary Zenith El Primero calendar, but changing the date 5 times a year is just too tedious, wouldn't you agree? If I had to describe this timepiece in 2 words, I would say sophisticated and ergonomic. You can spot the watch from across a room, and in the watch box, its refinement eclipses the competition. What I really like about Lange is the attention they not only put in the readability of the dial and what should first catch your attention, namely the hour and minute hands, but also the overall user-friendliness in the shape and the function, something that seems lost on many other watchmakers. The watch is about 40 mm but only 10.10 mm thick, as it is a manual wind. You might think a manual wind calendar is a bit of a drag, but 1. Winding a Lange is just about the finest interaction any watch lover can have with a timepiece. 2. Rotors are constant moving parts with all the inherent wear, noise, and even wobble issues that it entails. And 3. The power reserve is boosted to 3 days, so unlike most Patek automatic models, you can put down this watch on Friday and it will still be running on Monday. And if it wasn't, or you left it down for a few days, all you need to do is set the time and use the Lange trademark side pusher, which here advances the whole calendar in 1 day steps. In other reviews I have seen of this watch, mainly the excellent one by Kara of Hodinky, it is not clearly mentioned that the moon will also advance, but it definitely does. What a relief and what a convenience in comparison to pretty much anything else that exists on the market. Those who own a calendar watch know what I'm talking about. Classic at first sight, but so modern and convenient when you actually experience it in real life. Let's look at the details now, starting with the beautiful hand-stitched supple alligator strap, which is black but has some grey-bluish sheen that allows the watch to be worn also on that brown belt, brown shoes, blue suit combo day. Of course, it marries perfectly with the more common black belt, black shoes attire, at least in my line of work. And while it is the watch to wear at the office, you could totally be forgiven for wearing it casually with jeans on Fridays. To be honest, putting the watch down in the watch box is tough. Nothing you will put on the wrist after this will be as special, so I tend to reach for my beloved Sea Dweller to soften the blow. Simple white gold buckle with clever added trademark retainer bar and elegant shapes and marquee. I honestly prefer this to deployant clasps. It's just elegant, thinner, and comfortable. The case is made of white gold with sumptuous polished bevels and not often seen refined horizontal brushing. Fairly short lugs that keep the watch very easy to wear on any wrist. The back is very flat and suits mine to perfection. The rounded contour of the bezel aligns with the ever so slightly domed crystal, and the ensemble feels compact and in the end rather modern but elegant. Now with Lange, you know that the dial is not the only show in town, so let's look at the display case back. Behind an anti-reflection coated sapphire crystal is caliber L051.3 with the typical 1815 3/4 plate made of German silver and plated very soft and hard to work with, but also very anti-magnetic and corrosion resistant composite alloy of nickel, copper and zinc, the copper giving it that unique golden hue with mirrored anglage leaving exposed only the hand-engraved balance cock and big balance wheel free-sprung for better accuracy, running at a stately 21,600 beats per hour, which is fine when you have a small running seconds register, as it allows that extended power reserve. There is so much going on that I can't list it all or even understand the complexity of it all, but among other elements, you also find some Swiss-shelled classic watchmaking refinements, such as polished screws holding the movement to the case, tight perlage on the base plate, and then the longer standard blued screws that hold the screwed gold chatons around the rubies. Remark the fine rounding brushings between the glashütte striping on the plate and the spiral finishing on the mainspring wheel. You can see the mechanism of the ratchet and wheels at work when turning the ever so smooth signed crown. You will feel a slight bump when fully wound, and if you think you went a bit too roughly at it, Lange advises that you turn the other way just a little to provide relief to the mechanism. You have to understand that you are holding one of the finest timepieces in the world and that you must handle it with care to get the full reward and appreciation for it. Having said that, this is German engineering, so this is not a fragile item. Now, the dial. Made of, I believe, a lacquered piece of solid silver that shimmers like nothing you've seen before, unmarred by reflections as air coating is also applied on the front sapphire crystal. What a stunning balanced composition for such a complication. The first thing you see by design are the heat-blued hands. Those are not painted, of course, and they are probably the most beautiful shape I've ever seen. Blue is carried out onto the moon phase display with a romantic galaxy of stars added around a mirrored moon. Yes, you can see yourself while staring at your Lange. Then you see the only moving part, the seconds hand, delicately fashioned in white gold with a diamond shape on the counterside. Notice how its track is fully graduated with accents every 5 seconds, rendering it easily legible despite the small size, as contrasts are strong all over the execution. By now you have noticed a large circle meeting this subdial and realize there is a step between the center of the dial and the outside where the elegant printed Arabic numerals sit. The print itself has a superb glossy sheen like fresh paint. Now, some don't mind numerals truncated by these subdials. Some do. I personally like it. It feels more complete. I imagine the subdials exploding through the main dial, while if the 3, 6 and 9s weren't there at all, it would be an odd gap. I think it's fine on the time and power reserve 1815 up-down model, where the subdials are placed at 8 and 4. It is, by the way, superb and gives you the same visual delight through the display case back as the same main plate covers most of the movement. I truly recommend you to go and try one. I almost went for it, but the lack of date just drives me nuts, so it would be too much money not to feel totally fulfilled. Also, I prefer on a day-to-day basis the white gold, and while this watch here also comes in rose gold as well. White is the one I find more pleasing and certainly easier to wear, more modern and discreet. When I wear this, I'm sure people can tell it's nicely made, but not really that it's the price of a good car, unless they are in the know. For the same price, I could have gotten a gold Rolex Daytona, for example, but that's a way different ego trip. Alright, back to the dial. The brand marquee blends to perfection in that rounded format, while the smaller glass shooter mention adds a welcome horizontal balance to the design. And then we have the plat de résistance. On the left, the day and the date subdial, and on the right, the months, with a somewhat superfluous mention of the complication, where instead I would have loved to see a power reserve, or at least the other months in a smaller font perhaps. Then it keeps on going in the outer track, properly crossed by the minute hand, of course. Nothing is left to chance in Saxony, with lovely flourishes at the main 4 cardinal points. By the way, have you noticed the red element on the dial? Let me know what you think of this watch in the comments. I got it about 40% on the retail in excellent condition, apart from one scratch on one lug and a little damage on the bezel. At least I won't be the first to put a dent in this sublime timekeeper, which runs well within chronometer specs. One word about the brand. In an earlier video, I expressed concerns, like many others, about the design and motivations behind the recently released sports model of the brand, the Odysseus. This is the one thing that Patek has going for it. They're independent and the designs are in control of the Stern family. We might look in the future at the Odysseus as a classic, and I do love many aspects of it. However, I think it could have been better or just not been at all, because Lange does absolutely amazing complication pieces. Nevertheless, it has not put me off the brand sufficiently not to decide to take a chance on it, as it is known to pay attention to detail to the utmost level, as I hope my presentation has shown today. This beautiful watch is oddly not much talked about, but then again, it is a small percentage of a percent of watch lovers that will get to enjoy this type of pieces. But as I've said before, watch collecting requires an asset allocation frame of mind. And if you have the money in a sleepy fixed income or money market fund, consider reallocating it towards a Lange. It might just be the thing that makes your life more interesting to live every day. Now, Lange or Patek? Well, you can't go wrong either way. And if you can, give both a try, but I'll say this. While both are on a similar level of utmost quality, they build very different watches, inside and out. And when Lange came back on the scene with its datograph, it forced Patek to rise up to an unseen before challenge in terms of quality and visual statement. And that's how watchmaking progresses. Also remember that Lange is a lot more exclusive, as they make far less watches than Patek. And while Patek has been owned by the same family for generations, Lange still has actual descendants of Adolf Lange at its helm, despite being owned by the Richemont Group. And if releasing a double-split flyback chronograph was not enough to make the competition question its raison d'être, the Zeitwerk, the Grand Complication, the Terra Luna, the triple split hit the nail on the head with a hammer held by an elephant the size of a continent. I invite you to watch the Watches.tv's interview of Anthony De Haas, the product manager for Lange, about the 2019 SIHH releases. The Zeitwerk date and the rose gold dial perpetual calendar datograph tourbillon are my new grails. When you own a Lange, you own a watch from one of the very best watchmakers, certainly the very best German watchmaker, that not only finishes all its movements to the same high standards, but has its watchmakers put them together twice before the watch is deemed ready to be consumed. After all this, do you still care to spend a premium on that Rolex rather than reach a bit higher for a Lange on the second-hand market? Please give me a little push and like this video if you've enjoyed it. I have less time and lack of proper location to make videos these days, but there is more coming, including a rare piece from JLC. So stay tuned.